The Bold and the Beautiful. Ridge Forrester's fall. It began with a whisper in the hallway of Forrester Creations. A voice too familiar to ignore. One Ridge Forrester hadn't heard in years. Yet one he could never forget. Stephanie. Her voice. Her presence. Her shadow. She was back. Ridge froze when he first saw her. Stephanie Douglas Forrester, presumed dead, stood just feet away from him in the design studio. Alive, colder than ever, and very much in control. Her return wasn't some tearful reunion or sentimental resurrection. It was Judgment Day. The Forrester matriarch had never been easy to love, but her power, intelligence, and protective loyalty had made her the heart of the family. For better or worse. When she died, years ago, the family mourned, businesses shifted, secrets were buried. But Stephanie hadn't died. She had gone underground, retreating into silence, hiding for reasons no one yet understood. Until now, the truth unraveled not in confession but in collapse. His world had been unraveling long before Stephanie walked back into it. The weight of guilt pressed heavier each day, and now, faced with the living embodiment of the person he thought he had destroyed. Ridge cracked. In his office, late at night, with storm clouds breaking against the windows and the walls around him closing in. Ridge dropped to his knees and admitted the unthinkable. He had tried to kill his mother. He had succeeded, and it hadn't been an accident. I hated her, he cried into the darkness. She never let me live my life. She controlled everything. She couldn't stand that I loved Brooke. That I would always choose Brooke. So she made it her mission to stop me. Years ago, Stephanie had threatened to cut Ridge out of the family trust. She'd called Brooke a parasite. She tried to interfere in Ridge's relationship with his own children. Claimed he was spiraling. Tried to push him out of the company. His company. All to protect a legacy that Ridge no longer cared about if it meant losing the woman he loved. Ridge confessed that the night Stephanie died, there was an argument. One final war of words. Heated, sharp, she had waved legal papers in his face. Final amendments to her will. Stripping him of control, appointing Eric and Thorne as trustees. She told Ridge he would never touch another Forrester dollar if he stayed with Brooke. That night Ridge snapped. He didn't plan it. He watched, waited, made sure she didn't get back up. And then he called the ambulance. Told the family she was gone. Natural causes, he said. Stroke. Quick. Peaceful. No one questioned it. Until now. Stephanie had survived that night. Barely. But enough. And with help from an old contact outside the family. Someone loyal only to her. She disappeared, knowing full well that if Ridge believed she was dead, he would show his true face. And he had. Ridge assumed her assets would pass through probate. And they did. Slowly. With legal tricks and delays. Enough for him to get his hands on portions of the Forrester empire. Enough for him to feel untouchable. But Stephanie had watched from a distance. She had seen it all. Ridge rising. Brooke clinging. Eric too distracted by Donna to notice the rot setting in. She watched Ridge manipulate, gaslight, and position himself as the heir apparent to a throne he didn't earn. And now that the pieces were in place, she returned. Publicly. With a court order. And a charge, attempted murder. When she walked into Forrester Creations the next morning, flanked by 2 attorneys and an LAPD detective, silence fell across the building. Ridge stood frozen as the cuffs were placed on his wrists. No resistance. No denial. He looked at Stephanie once, and she didn't blink. You wanted everything, she said. Now you'll have nothing. The fallout was immediate. Eric was in shock. Thorne raged. Brooke refused to believe it. Until Stephanie laid out the files. The timeline. The medical records. The surveillance photos. It was airtight. A private investigation conducted outside the scope of the law. Hidden cameras Ridge never knew about. Audio recordings. The original paramedic report, altered later but preserved in its first digital draft. It wasn't just a confession. It was evidence. And now, it was war. Brooke begged Stephanie to reconsider. Don't do this, she said. He's your son. But Stephanie was unmoved. He made his choice, she said. He didn't just betray me, he betrayed all of you. He tried to kill me because I stood between him and what he wanted. That's not a son. That's a snake. The media exploded. Fashion empire in scandal. Forrester heir accused of murder. Stephanie Forrester returns from the dead. Investors panicked. Contracts were frozen. Buyers pulled out of major campaigns. And the board moved swiftly to remove Ridge from all operations. Inside the county jail, Ridge waited. He refused a lawyer from Forrester's in-house team. He declined bail. When questioned, he confessed again. In detail. I did it, he told the prosecutor. I killed her. Or I thought I did. Why? They asked. Because I couldn't take her power anymore. Stephanie wasn't finished. She moved to reclaim all assets transferred to Ridge during her absence. Her lawyers filed a motion to invalidate documents signed under the belief she was deceased. Everything Ridge had touched, every dollar, every share, every decision, was under review. The Forrester empire itself was on the edge of collapse. Taylor returned, shaken. She confronted Ridge through prison glass, asking him how he could have carried this secret while building a life with her again. He couldn't answer. He wept. Steffi and Thomas were blindsided. They tried to defend their father at first, but as the details emerged, even they struggled to reconcile the man they loved with the monster he had become. Steffi visited Stephanie in private. "I don't understand why," she said. "Because he tried to erase me," Stephanie replied. "And now I'm reminding the world who I am." It wasn't revenge. It was justice. Brooke, for once, was silent. She sat alone in her living room, staring at a wedding photo, her and Ridge, smiling. She remembered every fight Stephanie ever started, every slap, every word of poison. But somehow, the matriarch had always believed she was protecting the family. Maybe she had been right. The trial loomed. Prosecutors prepared a case for attempted murder, inheritance fraud, and obstruction. Ridge faced decades in prison. But he didn't fight, didn't protest. In court, he stared at the floor as Stephanie took the stand and recounted everything. Her survival, her silence, her return. The jury convicted him within 2 hours. Guilty. Ridge Forrester, heir to a legacy built on silk and steel, was sentenced to 25 years. As he was led away, he looked back only once. Not at Stephanie. Not at Brooke. At the doors. And Stephanie watched her son disappear with a face carved from stone. Forrester Creations would rebuild. Eric took control once more, with Thorne at his side. Steffi stepped back into leadership, battle-hardened and wiser. And Brooke finally stopped chasing Ridge. Stephanie didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for accountability. And in the end, she got it. Because in Los Angeles, secrets always surface. And in The Bold and the Beautiful, blood may run thick, but justice runs deeper. The Bold and the Beautiful. Brooke's reckoning. It arrived in a plain brown envelope. No return address. No handwriting. Just her name, Brooke Logan. Nestled inside was something she never expected to see again. Stephanie Forrester's old silver hair comb. It was tarnished with time, but unmistakably hers. A relic. A warning. A key. Brooke's hands trembled as she turned the comb over. It was heavy with meaning, but heavier still when she discovered the hidden latch. Inside, snug against the velvet lining, was a microchip, labeled. No note, just a cold, silent artifact from the past. She stared at it for minutes before inserting it into her laptop. And then the night came rushing back. The screen stayed dark, but the audio began. Rain pounding the pavement, wind howling through some distant alley. Footsteps. Then voices. Ridge. His voice was raised, angry, desperate, arguing with someone. The words were distorted by the storm, but fragments cut through clearly. "You never let go. You never stop. She's not yours to control anymore." Then came another voice, raspy, deliberate. Stephanie. Her tone wasn't shaken. She was in control. But what she said next shattered everything Brooke thought she knew. "Let her go, Ridge. Leave. Walk away and let Brooke be free of you." A pause. Then a scuffle. Then Ridge again. "You always stood in the way." A crash. Silence. And finally, the words Ridge could never take back. Spoken in a low, unfiltered snarl. Then disappear. The audio ended there. Brooke sat frozen, staring into the black screen. That stormy night, the night Stephanie supposedly died peacefully, had never left her, but this. This was a dagger through every illusion she clung to. For years Ridge claimed Stephanie passed in her sleep, reconciled and at peace. Brooke had mourned her, cried over her, even whispered a tearful apology at her grave. But now she knew. Stephanie hadn't gone quietly. She'd fought, not for herself, but for Brooke. Brooke held the comb in her hands like it might burn her. Someone had kept this hidden. Someone had protected this secret for years. And now they wanted the truth out. But why now? Why her? She didn't have time to unravel the mystery. Because within hours the police acted. The recording had already reached them. Stephanie had ensured that. She hadn't died in vain. She had prepared, protected. She had waited for the right moment to expose what really happened that night. The judge signed the warrant swiftly. There was no room for delay. Ridge Forrester was to be arrested on suspicion of attempted homicide and obstruction of justice. Not in the privacy of his home. Not behind closed doors. But at Forrester Creations, where his legacy began, and now, where it would fall. The morning was routine. Models walked the halls. Designers prepped the new line. Ridge paced through the studio like he always did. Head high, sketchpad in hand, eyes fixed on the next campaign. Until the LAPD entered. 2 officers. 1 warrant. One sentence, Ridge Forrester, you're under arrest. He didn't run. He didn't speak. He simply looked up and locked eyes with Brooke, who had followed the officers in. Her lips were pale. Her knees buckled the moment the cuffs clicked closed. Eric's voice echoed in the distance. Thomas shouted. Steffi screamed, there must be a mistake, but Brooke didn't hear any of it. Just her own heartbeat pounding like a war drum. She had loved Ridge for decades. Been his wife, his muse, his undoing. They had broken each other's hearts more times than she could count. But she had always believed, through all the pain, that he was not capable of cruelty. Not that kind. Now, the only thing she believed was that love had blinded her for too long. The investigation was reopened. Stephanie's remains were exhumed. The autopsy re-evaluated. The bruises now reinterpreted. The inconsistencies surfaced. The timing questioned. It all aligned with the chip. Stephanie had recorded her final moments. And Ridge had let everyone believe she died in peace. The district attorney contacted Brooke the following week. They needed her. Not as Ridge's former wife. Not as a designer or a witness to history. But as a key witness for the prosecution. Brooke didn't sleep that night. She sat on her patio in the cold, staring out over the Los Angeles hills. The wind whispering like ghosts around her. She remembered Ridge's laughter. His embrace. Their vows. She remembered the promises he made. The way he looked at her across candlelit tables. And now, the way he looked at her through the glass of a holding cell. But she also remembered Stephanie. The woman who had tormented her. Judged her. Blamed her for everything. Yet in the end, Stephanie had done the one thing no one else ever had. Protected her from Ridge. And Stephanie had paid for it with blood. Brooke walked into the DA's office the next morning. I'll testify, she said. The room fell silent. If that's what it takes, she continued. To stop him from hurting anyone else the way he hurt her or me, I'll do it. The statement rocked the family. Steffi confronted her in tears. How can you betray him like this? Brooke didn't flinch. The betrayal wasn't mine. Eric tried to remain neutral, but it crushed him. He had believed his son could redeem himself. He had hoped Ridge was simply lost. But the evidence was damning. The audio, the re-examined medical records, the timeline, the motive, it was all there. And Brooke's testimony would seal the case. She had been present the days after Stephanie's death. She had seen Ridge's behavior. The inconsistencies in his grief. The quick cremation plans. The sudden changes to the estate documents. At the time, she chalked it up to trauma. Now she knew better. And in court, she told it all. The room was still as she took the stand. Ridge stared at her with eyes that no longer pleaded, but accused. But Brooke didn't falter. She described the comb, the chip, the voice on the recording. And then she looked at Ridge, tears in her eyes but steel in her voice. You tried to erase her, she said. But she left the truth behind. And I won't let you bury it. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Every day, Brooke showed up. Not for vengeance. Not for closure. For justice. The media called it the fall of a fashion king. The headlines screamed betrayal, legacy, madness. The courtroom buzzed with the unraveling of one of LA's most powerful names. But inside, for Brooke, it was something else entirely. It was freedom. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty. Ridge Forrester was sentenced to 18 years for involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy to falsify a death. He showed no emotion, only silence. As he was led away, he passed by Brooke. Their eyes met one last time. No love, no rage, only ruin. Brooke stood alone on the steps of the courthouse as the cameras flashed. Reporters begged for a statement. She gave them none. She simply held the comb in her hand, Stephanie's last message, now returned to the light. And she whispered, I'm free. Because the past was no longer chasing her. It was finally buried, and the bold and the beautiful would never be the same again.